Welcome back, Epic 7 players. Pat here with another how to play video, and in this one we'll be going over the world's coolest aunt, Celine. As with all of my videos, I'll be doing a comprehensive breakdown on her stats, skills, endgame equipment builds, and some pointers on how to use her in World Arena. So, with that out of the way, let's get on with Celine's stats. Celine is an Earth Thief of the Scorpio Zodiac symbol, which means she shares a stat line with characters such as Sez, Specimen Sez, Urvalin, and the collab hero, Baiken. So when we take a look at her stats, she has 1,228 attack, 6,266 health, 113 speed, 473 defense, 23% critical hit chance, 150% critical hit damage, 5% dual attack chance, and no effectiveness or effect resistance. This translates to slightly above average attack, speed, and critical hit chance, very high health for a thief, but the lowest defense amongst all 5-star heroes in the game. In fact, I would argue that a Scorpio Thief might actually be the worst 5-star stat line in the entire game. I know people used to like to make fun of Desert Jewel Bassar for having no real effect resistance and a bunch of attack percentage in his runes, and Smallgate or Super Creative were able to change that. I'm begging you, if anyone from Smallgate or Super Creative watches this video, please change the values for a Scorpio Thief. This defense is so poor that it is significantly better to stack a bunch of flat defense over any other stat in order to add survivability to the stat pool, which is super counterintuitive for a Thief because they're usually meant to be high damage DPS characters. When we can kind of talk about whether or not it's worth it or what you should do if you want to change those stats in the build section, but that's enough about me complaining. We'll cover that a bit later. Let's get to the actual skills. Despite the flashy attack animations and badass idle animations, Celine is a fairly simple and straightforward character. Her S1 uppercut does a 1.x multiplier with an additional 20% as long as she gets a critical hit. So as long as your Celine is critting, it's like having a 1.2x single target S1, which is amongst the best in the entire game. Her S2 Intuition is her signature skill and the main reason that a lot of people are choosing to play her or build her. She attacks a random enemy with Blink when an enemy uses a non-attack skill. This can only be activated once every 2 turns. Blink cuts an enemy in the blink of an eye, and as long as they're not an elite or boss monster, damage sharing effects for that move are ignored. Blink also has a 1.4x multiplier. And again, because it ignores damage share, things like Arius might not be able to save the character, or specific damage share passives such as with Seaside Bellona. It's also important to note that Intuition has niche PvE uses in things like Hell Raid because certain characters will trigger this ability quite frequently. Her S3 Thunderclap has a 3 to 4 turn cooldown based on Molagoras and gives you 2 souls upon usage. It also has a 1.8x multiplier. When she uses this skill, it cleanses all debuffs from her and returns 30% of the damage that she deals as health. She also gets an evasion buff for 2 turns. When you soul burn this move, the damage multiplier increases from 1.8x to 2.3x, making it one of the stronger single target moves in the entire game. It's so strong that it can outright kill some bruisers and even tanky soul weavers such as Ruel of Light should your attack score be high enough. When it comes to Molagora priorities, consider Intuition first. This is the signature skill. This Anti-Cleave skill is probably the reason that you're trying to build her or play her in the first place, and since her good EEs are based around this skill, it's kind of a no-brainer. You should definitely max this no matter what, whether she is simply for an Anti-Cleaver or because you just want to have another green DPS in your arsenal. So this is definitely the one to prioritize. After that, consider Thunderclap, and finally Uppercut. You only really need to level Intuition to max if all you care about is Anti-Cleave, but if you intend to use her as a serious DPS, as with all DPS that we talk about, you should consider plus 15ing her. So now let's talk about her exclusive equipments. The one that we're going to talk about first is actually the second exclusive equipment. What this does is it increases the blink damage by 10%, and instead of targeting a random target when an enemy uses a non-attack skill, it will always prioritize the enemy with the highest attack. Celine is primarily chosen in World Arena to counter cleave compositions. For those of you who do not know, cleave compositions usually use non-attack skills to either increase the damage or combat readiness of one damage dealer on their team. That damage dealer then is meant to try to win the game for them in one attack. But because this exclusive equipment has such a high chance of outright killing them before they take a turn, it could spell an automatic loss for them. This EE is so powerful that enemies must always respect it, or they risk automatically losing the game because their carry could die instantly. So that is the main reason you would want to choose this, and I think for 99% of players, this is probably the one that you're going to end up choosing. So now that we've talked about the second exclusive equipment, we can actually talk about the first one. Instead of attacking the character with the highest attack on the enemy team, we go back to random targeting, but we also get stealth for 2 turns after Celine uses Bling. Because players have no idea if you're on this first EE or the second one, it creates a really powerful mind game. Your opponents have to ask themselves, if they use a non-attack skill, what's going to happen? Is their highest attack character going to die, or will a random one die? And if it's the highest attack, did they just lose the game if that character is removed from the board? And if it's the stealth artifact, will the Celine S3 or the Soulburn kill a second character? So this mind game alone makes her really powerful on Guild War and Arena defenses. And honestly, you can swap between these two EEs constantly to torture potential guilds you play all the time, potential arena opponents that might be attacking you constantly, or even your own friends if you play them often in casual enough games. It's just a really powerful mind game, and I think it's one of the main reasons why Celine is so powerful as a pocket pick. The final exclusive equipment increases Thunderclap's damage by 10%. It's kind of generic and honestly not really worth using unless you really just want to tell somebody to be gone with the Thunderclap. The first two are significantly more powerful, and I highly recommend them. All of her exclusive equipments, by the way, give critical hit chance, and when we go to the build section in a second, I'm assuming that you are using a 12% critical hit chance exclusive equipment. The first build that we're going to talk about is a versatile speed build. This is the build that I personally play. It's a little bit more well-rounded and lets you draft Celine into more standard compositions as opposed to just being a dedicated anti-cleaver. If your opponent has a character that's kind of fast with a non-attack skill such as Falcon or Clury, you can kind of draft this version of Celine and put them in a rather poor spot. If they use a non-attack skill to try to lock down a specific character on your team, you'll activate Intuition and then kill their character. But then if they don't use the non-attack skill, she's still fast enough to go second or third and outright kill a character with her S3. When we take a look at the stats, she's going to have 3,900 attack, 900 defense. Honestly, you can play whatever. I personally play like 780. Her defense is so terrible that it's honestly really difficult to get any high number on her. I've literally had her on a necklace with like 150 flat defense and a ring with like 150 flat defense, and I still have trouble breaking 1,200. So yeah, don't prioritize defense. Like whatever you can get is good. Over 900 would be fantastic, but don't sweat it if you have only like 700 or 800. 13k HP, you can go higher if you want more survivability thanks to her great HP stat. 220 speed, you can go higher than this. I've personally gone as high as 240, but I could see 250 being feasible as well. I would not go below 220. 100% crit chance, and then 270 crit damage. 270 crit damage is probably the lowest I would go on any build. Again, if your gear is much better, you can go even higher if you want. When we take a look at the right side, you want a crit damage neck, an attack percentage ring, and speed boots. Obviously, you don't want attack percentage boots, you want speed so that you can guarantee get that second or third turn kill. And then for the artifact, we are on Secret Art Storm Sword. Storm Sword is an absolute must in my opinion. If you really want to play Celine, if you really want to have a good Celine, you really need to get at least a plus 24 Storm Sword. I highly recommend rolling her banner or going to the powder shop and getting extra copies if you do not have enough to get at least a plus 24. As an alternative, if you absolutely just don't have the artifact, you can play Portrait of the Saviors or Symbol of Unity. So next, let's talk about a pure Anti-Cleave build. This is the build that you're going to want to go if all you want to do is draft Celine to stop cleavers. It's pretty basic. There's nothing flashy. Just get high damage stats so that your S2 does ludicrous amounts of damage. You can play her on any set at all for this, as long as she hits the stat line, as opposed to the speed build, which obviously needed to be on speed set. When we take a look at the actual numbers, she needs 4,400 attack, 900 defense. Again, her defense is absolute trash. Don't really prioritize it. You'll just end up wasting too many stats to make it actually viable. And no matter what defensive stats you put on her, it's not like she's going to ever survive a soul burn from a challenger to Midiel anyway without help. So yeah, 13k HP. Again, you can go higher. Any amount of speed is fine. You're just looking for damage stats. You can play her on a speed set. If you play attack percentage boots with a speed set, it is feasible for you to get 170 to 180 speed, which means that she might actually get a turn. So that is something definitely to consider. 100% crit chance, 300 plus crit damage. You can go even higher if you want. I've seen friends go as high as 320 or 330. If your gear allows it, by all means go for it. When we take a look at the right side, crit damage neck, attack percentage ring, attack percentage boots, and again, speed boots might be feasible on something like, maybe an attack set, or you have a really insane speed set. That is also viable as well. Attack percentage boots is what I'd most likely go for, max damage if all you care about is the S2. But again, you could get these stat lines at a much lower speed than the speed build with some speed boots. We take a look at the artifact, where again, on Storm Sword, you're playing Celine for the S2. This build is trying to maximize the S2 damage. Why would you not play the artifact that makes the S2 really good? Again, if you really want to play Celine, I highly recommend rolling to try to get her artifact to at least plus 24, so it's pretty consistent. Otherwise, you're going to have to fall back on things like Portrait of the Saviors or Symbol of Unity. No one really does what Celine does, so it's really difficult to recommend specific teammates for her when you're trying to pick her in World Arena. That said, I would consider taking her with other Anti-Cleave characters such as Politis or Senya. Politis plus Celine is a really potent combination, as both of them completely shut down certain types of cleave comps. So if you choose both of them, your opponent's not going to be able to ban both of them, so they're going to end up losing the game automatically. Senya is just really good for the Reflect versus Cleave teams. Also, the anti-crit is really nice as well, and also she can give Celine a little bit of survivability with her S2 passive. Speaking of survivability, definitely consider taking her with other knights that can help her survive. Troublemaker Crozet comes to mind first and foremost, simply because of his damage share, which can save Celine from her absolutely pitiful defense. So what characters should we be drafting Celine into for World Arena? Well, she's really good against Cleave setup characters such as Auxiliary Lots and Flan. These characters use powerful non-attack skills in order for their teams to accomplish their goals, and Celine's S2 intuition is basically tailor-made to shut that down. She's also really good against Falconer Clury. Falconer Clury is obviously very strong due to her high base speed, survivability, and most importantly, her provoke and defense break on her S3. If she uses her S3, you can basically guarantee get a kill on one of their characters as sort of like a tax for them using the move. This makes Clury players have to think twice and kill your Celine before they can actually use the S3, which is most likely what they're trying to use anyway when they're playing the character. Lastly, she's really good against top model Lulika. The bulk of Lulika's damage comes from the attack buff from her S2. If she uses her S2, because of her poor base survivability stats, the S2 might be enough to just pierce through her shield and kill her outright. It also, if you're on the stealth EE, could potentially kill someone else on their team, so you're basically getting a free trade 1-for-1. So what shouldn't we draft Celine into? Well, it shouldn't be a surprise because they're both fire, but the Ranka sisters, Carrot and Sirmia, are really good against Celine. Carrot is good because she innately has a barrier, which makes her very difficult for Celine to kill on top of the mischance, and her burns do so much damage that your poor Celine won't survive due to her bad defensive stats. It's a similar story when we look at the older sister Sirmia. Her EE number 2 shield is absolutely perfect at baiting the S2 intuition from Celine, and her S3 is so powerful that it'll kill Celine no matter what your stats are. Finally, Arbiter Vildred is also pretty good into Celine. Smart enemies can basically bait your S2 into killing Arbiter, triggering his S2 passive revive, which spells a quick cleave for your team. The last two characters that I want to talk about, which will round out a comprehensive list of her bad matchups, are Briarwitch Issaria and Faithless Lidica. Much like Arbiter Vildred, Briarwitch Issaria's S2 will guarantee that she will not die from Blink, and therefore still get off her S3 and potentially cleave your team. Faithless Lidica is fast enough to go before Celine, and also give her whole team a skill nullifier before you ever have a chance to use the S2 Blink. And yeah, that's quite a lot of bad matchups, more than the usual amount I put in that section for a video. The reason why is Celine is naturally a anti-cleave unit, and cleave matchups are usually won or lost at character select screen, so I felt it was more important to give you access to more possibilities that your opponents might pick, so that way you are more informed and can make a better decision on your bans. So, that's going to conclude the Celine video. As always, leave me a like, comment, or subscribe. It helps me out a ton here at this channel, and you can help out your friends and guildmates by sharing this video with them if you think it will help them. And as always, let me know in the comments below what you guys want to see next. Bye-bye!